Whether it's the winning culture or the young quarterback, the New Orleans Saints proved that they have something that coaches want to be a part of.
You are Locked On Saints, your daily New Orleans Saints podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is good, Who Dat Nation and Who Dat family? I am your host, your friend Ross Jackson, New Orleans native, your New Orleans Saints expert and credentialed member of the media covering those New Orleans Saints as a Saints beat writer over at LouisianaSports.net. And on today's episode of Locked On Saints, we're taking a look at breakout candidates going into 2026 and why cornerback Kool-Aid McKinstry tops the list. And we'll take a look back at 2025 at some of the breakout players from last season, led off, of course, by defensive end Chase Young. And we're kicking everything off with a pair of New Orleans Saints coaching staff members being retained and why it speaks volumes about where the Saints are now. We got all that and a little bit of lanyap for you on today's episode. We appreciate you, whether it's your first time or your next time, being here with us this time, making us your first listen, and being an everydayer here on the show, which is a proud part of Locked On Podcast Network, the #1 sports podcast network. Thank you for helping us get here as we bring you your team every day. The New Orleans Saints saw two coaching staff members that had opportunities for promotions with another team choose to stay in the Big Easy on Tuesday, and that speaks volumes about where the New Orleans Saints are here and now. So, just to recap, quarterback coach Scott Tolzien was up for the offensive coordinator job over with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Rumor has it that he was considered the top candidate for that role. He has decided to stay in New Orleans. Similarly, tight end coach Chase Haslett, the son of former New Orleans Saints head coach Jim Haslett, was given the opportunity to interview with the Pittsburgh Steelers for not just their tight ends coach job, but their passing game coordinator title as well, which would have made it a promotion for Coach Haslett. He too decided to stay in New Orleans, and according to reports by NFL insider Jordan Schultz, it was his decision to do so. Both of those retained coaching staff members speak volumes about where the New Orleans Saints are here and now. You remember that there was much conversation about how the Saints maybe weren't necessarily the greatest destination for a coaching staff last year when the team was looking to hire its next head coach, looking to fill out its coaching staff roster. Of course, all of those types of conversations were opinions, things like that, but Saints landed Kellen Moore and built out and also landed defensive coordinator Brandon Staley in the process, built out a strong coaching staff. And that coaching staff is now turning back to New Orleans and saying that is a place I want to be and choosing to stay in the city. I think that this is massive for the New Orleans Saints on a couple of different fronts. There is that front, which I think is maybe paramount to anything else outside of maybe one thing, which we'll get to next. But the idea that these coaching staff members turn down promotions or turn down opportunities for promotions, whatever it was that happened there, to stay in New Orleans tells you exactly who the New Orleans Saints are now and speaks a lot loudly in terms of what it is that they are offering coaches as a culture, offering coaches as an opportunity to win, offering coaches as an opportunity to be a part of a winning culture and a winning program. Coaches making a decision to stay here in New Orleans is a very, very loud statement. The second thing that I think is really important here too, and this mostly focuses on Scott Tolzien, is that this is really, really positive for Tyler Shough's development going into his second year. Going into his second year, there will be no change in his coaching staff. The head coach is there. The offensive coordinator is there. The quarterback coach is there. The associate head coach is there. All the position coaches remain going in. That's huge for the development of Tyler Shough, who has a great relationship with Scott Tolzien. And Tolzien himself did a phenomenal job cultivating a relationship and cultivating their own culture inside of the quarterback room, and we're seeing the benefit of that. And now we'll get to see the benefit of that going into a second year with no changes for quarterback Tyler Shough, who of course had a really, really promising outing during his rookie season. Now going into his rookie year, not having anything change around him, having some consistency, keeps everything nice and comfortable, keeps all the messaging the same. The things that allowed Tyler Shough to find success in 2025 will be repeated again in 2026, and that is fantastic news for the New Orleans Saints, who are hoping that Tyler Shough is their quarterback of the future. And one of the ways to potentially spoil the opportunity for a quarterback to prove that he is the quarterback of the future is to have too much changing around him. The Saints avoid that with Scott Tolzien choosing to stay in New Orleans. The third thing that I think that's really important here is kind of similar, but looks at head coach Kellen Moore. Kellen Moore, from the very beginning, started to build a culture in New Orleans, had these guys doing charity events, working together, bonding, team building, all those other things, helped them weather a storm that was quite the storm throughout the season. Started 1-7, going 5-4 down the stretch, a lot more promise all of a sudden. So he built a culture that allowed this team to move from losing ways into winning ways, that allowed this team to stay together as a locker room despite navigating or weathering the storm was a common phrase that this coaching staff used about what 2025 started off like and how they were able to weather that to find success down the stretch. On top of that too, it allows Kellen Moore to have some continuity and some familiarity as well going into 2026, just like Tyler Shough. He doesn't have to rely on going out there and finding a new quarterback coach and hoping that that quarterback coach is going to be able to pass the messages on the same way that Scott Tolzien did. He doesn't have to worry about being on the same page with a guy like he is with Scott Tolzien with their previous overlaps and their understanding of what it is that they want to achieve together. This decision and this ability to keep Scott Tolzien in the building is massive for New Orleans from a futures perspective. And similarly, when it comes to Chase Haslett, because I don't want to discount him just because he's not working with the quarterback, but we saw that outstanding breakout year that Juwan Johnson had in this offense, working with Kellen Moore, working in that offense, working with Tyler Shough, and of course, under the tutelage of Chase Haslett, his tight ends coach, his position coach. I think that having both of these guys stick around helps to make sure that this offense maintains its consistency, that this offense maintains its chemistry, and that these players that have shown massive amounts of development in a short period of time working with these coaching staffs get the opportunity to bridge that gap from 1 year into a second year to see if they can build upon. I'm going to use the Cam Jordan hand motions here, build upon and climb that ladder a little bit more going into the next year. Now, it's very likely that Haslett, as well as Tolzien and other coaches on this New Orleans Saints coaching staff, are going to be hot commodities in 2027 if the team finds success in 2026. One playoff run in 2026 is going to make every single one of these other coaches a lot more desirable to other teams. But in any case, this is a great for the New Orleans Saints, their ability to take steps forward, their ability to prove what it is that they are building and are in the process of building and what that future can look like. And of course, that very, very bright future for Tyler Shough remains intact as he moves ahead with some consistency in terms of his coaching staff. Fantastic news for New Orleans. Coming up next, I want to take a look at some of the breakout players from 2025 and what 2026 could potentially look like for them, leading off with edge rusher Chase Young. We got that coming up for you next as we continue on with today's episode of Locked On Saints, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode of Locked On Saints is brought to you by friends over at TurboTax. Tax season doesn't have to take over your life year after year after year. That's where TurboTax comes in, because with TurboTax full service, you can actually take all of your taxes and pass them off to somebody else who will handle them for you start to finish, a local expert who can make sure that you don't have to handle any of the stress and any of the guesswork. Instead of spending hours trying to find the right forms, you can meet with a local TurboTax expert in person or connect online. They'll go through everything from W-2s, self-employment forms, and work to make sure that you get every deduction that they can find for you. And for a limited time, you can have your taxes done by a local TurboTax expert for just $150 all in, as long as a TurboTax expert did not file your taxes for you last year. Just file by February 28th. Take taxes off of your plate and get back to your life. Just visit turbotax.com/local to book your appointment today. This episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. February is here, and let's be real, it can be a lot, right? Flowers, candy, stuffed animals, and lots of talk about relationships. And it can sometimes feel like everyone around you just has the perfect love life. But here's the truth. Whether you're married, single, or just focusing on you, most people are still figuring things out. So no matter where you are in your romantic journey, therapy can help you find your way. It can help you be clear on what it is that you want, what feels heavy, and how to take some pressure off of yourself. I'm a big advocate for therapy. I've done it for a long time, everything from love life to regular life. It is super, super helpful, and especially helpful through BetterHelp, where everything is tailored to your schedule, completely online and made for the busy person like us. BetterHelp gets you licensed therapists in the US, and they'll do the initial matching for you. If you don't like the first matching, don't worry. You can even change it once you get with their therapist as well. Right now, you can sign up and get 10% off at betterhelp.com/lockedon. That's BETTERHELP.com/lockedon. All right, family, we got 3 breakout players from 2025 that I want to highlight, and I'm not sure that it's the end of the list either. So if there are any names that I miss here, let me know. We'll revisit them here as we continue on with the offseason. But 2025 was kind of the year of the breakout player for New Orleans. They had a lot of guys that broke out as role players, a lot of guys that broke out as rookies as well. I don't want to leave out of the conversation guys like Kelvin Banks Jr., who started 17 games at left tackle. I don't want to leave out Tyler Shough, who of course arrived on the scene, now has a breakout year potentially ahead of him here in 2026. But for 2025, the guy that leads the list for me in breakout years is defensive end Chase Young. Let's discuss why, and I'll tell you about 2 others as well. We appreciate you very much as always, making us your first listen and being an everydayer here on the show. Don't forget to check out the Everydayer Club, where you can get this show ad-free, as well as the Everydayer All Access program, where you can get additional content as well, especially while I'm out here in San Francisco over the course of Super Bowl week. We'll see what I get, but you'll be able to get it first over at the Everydayer Club. You can click the link in the description in order to get started and learn more. I'm putting Chase Young in the breakout player category, and I'll be interested to hear how you feel about this. Because, look, Chase Young has had 7 sacks, 7.5 sack seasons, all that, but this was his first time entering double-digit sacks, and he put pressure on quarterbacks. He revitalized I don't want to say revitalized, but he helped realize the potential of this New Orleans Saints defense in defensive coordinator Brandon Staley's new scheme, system rather. And so I highlight Chase Young as a big-time breakout candidate in 2025. The 10 sacks were a big part of it, absolutely no doubt about that. But his ability to contribute as a run stopper, his ability to kind of help create opportunities for other guys that were around him, all of that just sort of came together in his favor in 2025. On top of the 10 sacks, he also added 11 tackles for a loss, 38 combined tackles as well, had that incredible forced fumble recovery return for a touchdown, an incredible season for Chase Young at a time where really, if we're being honest, a lot of people kind of gave up on him. They weren't sure that he was going to be able to do anything better than what he did in San Francisco or his first year in Washington, or even his most recent year last year with New Orleans. There's all of those pieces to people maybe thought, I'm not so sure he's going to be able to put it all together, not so sure he's really fully there. Remember, this is a guy that also had all those big time effort question marks early in his career and all that. And we just talked about the importance of culture, the winning culture, the culture that the New Orleans Saints and head coach Kellen Moore have created. A lot of times, that culture makes a big difference in terms of an opportunity to be able to settle in somewhere, to play your heart out somewhere, to give your all somewhere, all of those bits. And I think that we certainly saw that from Chase Young. Chase Young said he wants to be in New Orleans forever. He wants to spend the rest of his playing career in New Orleans if he gets the opportunity. And it's not super surprising to hear that based upon the incredible season that he had in 2025. I can't wait to see what 2026 looks like for him. The fact that he missed the first few games of the season, I think, you look at that and you go, man, what could that have been with a full 17 game season, right? 12 games, 10 sacks, 11 tackles for a loss, all that. What could it have looked like if he was out there on the field week 1? I think he probably wants to prove what it would have looked like if he was out there week 1 next year, starting in 2026. So Chase Young, big time breakout arrival. He's back type of year in 2026, but I'm in 2025, but I'm particularly curious to see what things are going to look like for him in 2026 as well. Another breakout player for me from 2025, I've already alluded to, was tight end Juwan Johnson. Juwan Johnson just fits so perfectly in this Saints new system. He did everything that he needed to do to go out there as a pass catcher and make waves. He was finished up the season with 889 receiving yards. He was one of the top 5 tight ends in the NFL, 77 receptions. Both of those numbers, by the way, career highs. Only had 3 receiving touchdowns, though. So still more that he can do. We've seen it before. He had a season back in 2022, his first year as a tight end, with 7 touchdowns. So if you looked at it and you said 77 receptions, 889 receiving yards, and 7 touchdowns, you're probably looking at him even more fondly in 2025 or coming out of 2025. He's another one that could be going in the right direction, or even further rather, in 2026 as well. So he's a big time breakout player for me. I know that he's not proven to be sort of the all-around tight end from a blocking perspective and everything, but I actually enjoy that the Saints mitigated that by not necessarily forcing him to be that player. They leaned into what it is that he does well, which is run routes and catch passes. And he did that extremely well in 2025. I'm excited to see what they ask of him in 2026. And especially if they continue to build up that tight end room, which is going to see a bit of an exodus going into 2026. I imagine Jack Stoll is on an expiring contract. Foster Moreau is on an expiring contract. Taysom Hill's contract voids before the new league year begins. Zaire Mitchell-Payton's contract comes to an end. So, we'll see how they continue to rebuild that tight end room, but make no mistake about it, Juwan Johnson will be at the top of that room, and it's because of the incredible performance that he had in 2025. All right, let's wrap it up with one more breakout star. And this is another one to where you can tell me if I'm wrong if you want. But looking at what 2024 was for him, even though he had successful 2022 and 2023 seasons, I cannot go through this episode talking about breakout candidates without at least showing some love to Chris Olave. 100 receptions, career high. 1,163 receiving yards, career high. 9 receiving touchdowns, career high. Became only the second New Orleans Saints receiver, pass catcher, offensive player as a whole, in the Saints franchise history to cross the century mark in receptions, or even reach the century mark in receptions, and was 1 touchdown shy from becoming the first 1,010 receiver pass catcher player in New Orleans Saints history, all because he had to miss that final week 18 game up against the Atlanta Falcons with the blood clot issue. Chris Olave absolutely had a breakout year. Maybe you don't call it a breakout year. Maybe you call it a comeback of the year appropriate type of season. The fact that he wasn't even a finalist for NFL Comeback Player of the Year to me is still so baffling. But in any case, Chris Olave absolutely deserves his flowers for the incredible season that he had in New Orleans as a breakout star. Can't wait to see how he builds upon that in 2026. And speaking of 2026, there are several breakout candidates, but the guy sitting at the top of the list for me is cornerback Kool-Aid McKinstry. Let me tell you why and who accompanies him next as we continue on with today's episode of Locked On Saints, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode of Locked On Saints is brought to you by our friends over at Home Chef. As the new year gets rolling along, people are trying to adjust to new routines. They're embracing healthier habits. They're embracing better money spending habits as well. And Home Chef is here to help you with both of those things. It can make a big time difference. And that's where Home Chef comes in. Home Chef takes all the stress out of cooking by delivering fresh, pre-portioned ingredients to your door with easy to follow instructions that actually taste great. I've used Home Chef for some time. It's a different type of meal delivery service in that they send you the ingredients so that you can still cook, impress all your friends, all that good stuff. I love Home Chef. I think that you will too. You should absolutely go and check it out. And their wide array of options, including, of course, meeting up with dietary restrictions as well. So for a limited time, Home Chef is offering our listeners 50% off their first box, free shipping, and free dessert for life. Just go to homechef.com/lockedon. That's homechef.com/lockedon to get 50% off your first box, free shipping, and free dessert for life. Must be an active subscriber to receive free dessert. Today's episode also brought to you by our friends over at Gusto. Let's be real. Nobody starts a business with a passion for tax withholding and managing payroll spreadsheets, right? That's where Gusto comes in. Gusto gives you a one-stop shop that will take all the stress out of payroll, benefits, and HR so you can focus on running your business and supporting your team. I've used Gusto before as an employee. It's super, super easy. Payments come directly to you, all that good stuff. You get unlimited payroll runs for one monthly price as a business owner, which means no surprise charges at the end of the month. And of course, knowing that you can reach out to a certified HR expert anytime gives you a lot of peace of mind as well. So try Gusto by heading over to gusto.com/lockedonnfl to get 3 months free when you run your first payroll. That's right. 3 months free when you run your first payroll over at gusto.com/lockedonnfl. That's gusto.com/lockedonnfl. Let's get it. Who Dat Nation got 3 more breakout players for you, but this time looking ahead to 2026. Which players have the ability to really land on the scene based on some of the promise that they already showed in 2025? I've got 3 players that I want to highlight. And really, there's more to this list, right? Because there's the whole rookie class that kind of falls into this category. So a little bit more on that at another time. But focusing on some of the other players, though, we will hit a rookie in this conversation. I'm going to leave Tyler Shough out of the conversation because it's so clearly a big one, right? That's so clearly one that, you know, has the ability to kind of have this breakout season. We've seen the breakouts for the second-year quarterbacks here lately and what that potentially looks like just this past year. Bo Nix, Drake May, all that. If there's some opportunity for Tyler Shough and the New Orleans Saints to follow either one of those blueprints, particularly maybe the New England Patriots blueprint, there's obviously going to be a breakout conversation to be had there. So to acknowledge that, but then we move on. I think that the other players that I'm looking at are really the guys that maybe are a little bit beyond that first year going into their second year and everything, except for one. So I want to start off with Kool-Aid McKinstry, who I mentioned earlier. Kool-Aid to me finished the season strong again in 2025, did the same thing in 2024. You could see that maybe the season didn't start off the way that they wanted for him, and certainly not the way that he wanted. Some of the big plays given up, things like that. But as the season went on, he got better and better and better and better. And he is, to me, a breakout candidate going into his third year. My understanding is that he's doing a lot of kind of training to make sure that he is ready to go going into 2026 with a big focus on, you know, different things like, speed and footwork and all these other things. And so if he gets all that down, along with the instincts and along with the technique with which he plays, which keeps his floor high, that's the thing that I don't think gets talked about enough when it comes to Kool-Aid McKinstry, is his attention to detail and his attention to the technique, to the fundamentals, all the things that you can always lean back on. What's one of the reasons why he's every coach's dream that I've talked to that's ever worked with him, is because he's so fundamentally sound. And so with that, him being able to walk into year 2, finally, or year 3 rather, finally this time going into the same defense that he played in the year before, which was not the case going from Dennis Allen's defense to Brandon Staley's defense, which I think never really got talked about, how challenging that was in terms of the shift from press man to zone to split field coverage to the communication, all those other things. It's why you saw him get better and better and better as the season went on, because he got more comfortable and more comfortable and more comfortable in Staley's defensive scheme, or system rather. And of course, the coaches got better at coaching it. The players got better at executing it. It all makes sense. And so Kool-Aid, I think, going into a second year in Brandon Staley's system and a third year in the NFL, I think this is going to be a big time opportunity for him, maybe to shock some Saints fans and shock the NFL world by putting up a big time performance in his third season. Another player that I'm looking at as a breakout candidate is wide receiver Devaughn Vele. The games that we saw Vele put together, whether you're looking at his game against Carolina, maybe you're looking at his game against Miami, such an impressive physical player with an insane catch radius. And you really saw he and Tyler Shough get it, kind of get that rhythm together, build that chemistry together, all that. And so while we watched Chris Olave have a breakout season, in my opinion, in 2025, I think there's another one on the way at the position with Devaughn Vele going into his third season and his second season here, or not here in New Orleans, I'm in San Francisco, but you get it, right, with the New Orleans Saints. And so to me, Devaughn Vele has a real opportunity for a breakout year, depending upon how the Saints go about addressing the wide receiver position. If they draft a Jordan Tyson in the first round, then maybe that has a negative impact on Devaughn Vele. But if the Saints feel like Vele and Olave are the guys, and they're really just looking to add a complement to that player, a Zachariah Branch out of Georgia, for instance, who's that yards after catch threat, Casey Concepcion out of, where is he, Mississippi State or Texas? No, he's Texas A&M. Out of Texas A&M, Brennan Thompson is the yards after catch guy, track athlete out of Mississippi State. Adding one of those guys instead, Cyrus Allen out of Cincinnati, right? So many of these players that could be big time additions to the duo of Devaughn Vele and Chris Olave. And I don't think you stop there. You've got Jalen Polk. You've got ideally another year of Trey Palmer. You have some of these other guys that could settle in. Maybe the return of Bub Means, all that. I think that that's a spot, though, with Devaughn Vele where there is absolutely a breakout opportunity available at wide receiver, and him going into a second year in the system with the way that Tyler Shough trusts him, with the way that Coach Williams trusts him, with the way that Coach Moore, head coach Kellen Moore trusts him. I think that all of that shapes up as a real opportunity for Devaughn Vele, depending upon how the Saints address the position in the offseason, to have a big time breakout opportunity here in 2026. I am going to name one rookie. And it's not Tyler Shough. We already highlighted Tyler Shough. I'm going to talk about Danny Stutzman. Linebacker Danny Stutzman going into his second year and the potential of a larger role for him in New Orleans, whether it's in place of Pete Werner next to Demario Davis and getting more snaps there, or if it's because Demario Davis decides to go elsewhere and then Danny Stutzman gets thrust into a larger role. In either case, I'm so excited to see what 2026 Danny Stutzman is. Remember, Stutzman didn't get a lot of looks or opportunities from other teams. The Saints loved him. They brought him in the pre-draft process. One of the top-rated linebackers, ended up being able to get him. Him going into his second year in Brandon Staley's system, I think is going to be very, very exciting. All right, let's keep this going as we get into a little bit of lagniappe here and wrap things up on today's show. Thank you very much for making it to this point in the episode. Look, I think Jonas Sanker, Quincy Riley, Tyler Shough, Kelvin Banks Jr., Danny Stutzman, Devin Neal, I think all of these guys, Vernon Broughton, and I guess, look, you can say the seventh rounders too. I don't know how many snaps guys like Moliki Matavao or Fadil Diggs are going to get going into their second years, but no reason to discount them. I think all, what is that, 9? Yeah, 9 of those guys, right? 9 draft picks? Yeah, all 9 of those guys have a real chance to see elevated roles going into their second year. And of course, you might be saying, well, yeah, duh, Ross, of course that's the case. That's because they're rookies and they're going from their rookie year into their second year. Of course, there's the opportunity for elevated roles for them. But I don't think that it's just that. I think that each of them has shown some amount of promise to the point to where they earn those elevated roles, those expanded opportunities as well. So I wanted to highlight the rookie class as a whole as being all out breakout candidates across the board going into this 2026 season. Now, I think it's obvious who the most likely candidates are. Tyler Shough, Kelvin Banks Jr., who really showed up right out of the gate in his first year anyway. But Devin Neal, Danny Stutzman, Quincy Riley, Jonas Sanker, these guys that are already in starting roles or heavy contributing roles are going to see the biggest opportunities for a breakout. But when you look at things like what we opened today's episode with, the coaching staff members being willing to say, no, I'm going to forego a promotion and I'm going to stay in New Orleans, I think that the young talent on the roster and the culture that's being built is a massive reason why they did that and why this rookie class can have a lot of promise going into its second year. All right, family, coming up in tomorrow's episode, everything you need to know from our first day on Radio Row. We appreciate you very much as always, making us a part of your day, part of your routine, for saying yes to me on the show. If you see me, please say hi. And if you need anything else around your New Orleans Saints in between these episodes, make sure you follow me on your favorite social media at Ross Jackson, NOLA. Hit me up. Let me know how family's doing. Let me know how you living. Let me know how you momming them. And trust you, that nation. I'll holla at you.